Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Shmuel, as I will have come back from my ordination and my intensive in my ordination, and honored and pleased to be able to serve you as a fully ordained rabbi. So, this week's Torah portion, in honor of that, we're going to have a double portion. We have Chukat, which is decrees, and we have Balak. So, decrees, Hukim. Hukim, decrees, are different than Mishpatim, which is ordinances, because decrees is something that Hashem just says this is what you got to do. That's a decree. So, what the laws of kashrut, for example, why do we not eat pork? Okay, it's a decree. Many people have strived over the years, many rabbis, many sages have strived to give us a logical, reasonable explanation. But ultimately, the great sages like Rashi and Rambam, Nachmanides, Maimonides, that's just the way it is. Okay, God gave us a decree, we obey it. Okay, it's part of the discipline of being a Jew. Similarly, the Chukat, the decree that we're talking about, to which we're referring in this particular portion, is the decree of the red heifer. So this is a cow that is red, and if you have two hairs that are not red, the cow is disqualified. And we'll get to what the cow is used for in a minute. But basically, this is a young cow, not older than a calf, but younger than a full adult cow. And again, it is red. It has never been yoked. It's never been used in the field, so it's pure. It's virginal, if you will. This cow, this heifer, is used in a purification rite. It's not a sacrifice. It's not done in the temple. It's a purification for those who have come in contact with a corpse. So one group of priests will burn the cow, every part of it, take the ashes, mix it with water, and sprinkle it over the people that have had to do the last rites of a human being, a person who has died, and they want to dress up the corpse and prepare it for burial. They are now impure. So the red calf, the ashes of the red calf, serve to purify those people. On the other hand, the people that have prepared the red heifer, they themselves are now impure. So people look at this and say it's kind of contradictory. That purity is being granted by people who are thus impure. And part of the explanation, they discuss how Abraham was born of idolaters, for example. Okay, how pure comes from impurity. Right? So that's just one way that actually happens. There's also talk about the fact that sometimes you actually have to see the impurity in order to want to become pure yourself. So that's the first part of this particular portion. The second part talks about the death of Miriam. Now, Miriam was a prophetess. Right? She's not really mentioned a lot in the Torah, just very occasionally when her presence is prominent, like when she is the person who puts the infant Moshe, in the Nile River and floats him away to safety, for example. Also, she's the one that approaches Pharaoh's daughter and says, "Oh, there's a Hebrew woman that can wean him." And then again, she's the one that led. It's just a very brief reference after the Egyptians are killed at the sea. They're swallowed up. When the Sea of Reeds closes up, she's the one that leads all the women in singing and dancing. Another very distinct characteristic of Miriam, a purpose, is that when Miriam, and think of her name, Miriam, it's very close, very similar to the Hebrew word for water, which is Mayim. So whenever Miriam was there, the Israelites had water. They had the wells of Miriam. When Miriam died, the water dried up, the wells dried up. And a lot of people have looked at this and said, when a righteous person dies, why did they die? They kind of take some of the negativity, some of the stress of the people with them. So it's kind of a purification, yes, like a sacrifice, right? The problem, the concern, the reason why the waters dried up is because the people were more concerned with the fact that Miriam's no longer around. How are we going to drink? Where's the water going to come from? They mourn the loss of the water more than Miriam, all right? Problem number one. The second thing is that Aaron died. Now, people seem to mourn Aaron more than they mourned Miriam. And as you can tell by the death of these two great prophets, right, we're kind of, the Torah has jumped ahead in the book of Numbers, the book of Bamidbar, and we're like 38 years forward, right? Why isn't those intervening 38, 39 years mentioned? Nothing happened. People just wandered around. Later on, we'll see that some of their travels are discussed, but really, nothing really happened. Now, the conservative commentator Rav Hertz, who edited the Sonsino, says that it was really kind of not a great time in the Israelites' history, so we really don't focus on it. We want to focus on a lot of the good stuff, which of course may defy our reality that we do see a lot of negativity in the Torah. Okay, so Aaron dies, and he's brought up to the mountain, and his soul is plucked to him like pulling, and this is the phrase that the sages use, pulling a hair out of a glass of milk. For most of us, for the rest of us, death is a very traumatic experience. It's usually accompanied by pain. The body deteriorates, and there's a struggle to keep to life because we're afraid of what the unknown is. But these guys, Moses, Aaron, Miriam, to a large extent, were prophets. They saw beyond just the material life. They saw the essence of spirit, of Hashem, in the universe and in all of us. So they weren't really afraid, of death, and they saw beyond the clasping to or clinging to the materialism of life. So them dying was not really, the trauma that it is for the rest of us. Of course, they had great vision, like a lot of us don't, but again, they were able to see beyond that. Aaron was really kind of mourned beyond that because Aaron was very active with the Israelites. He would bring about peace between man and God. So, for example, he was the one that did the golden calf. And it was a lot to his credit that he did that. People say, well, how could he have sinned? But he saw somebody killed with that, so he wanted to make peace. He wanted to buy time until Moshe came down from the mountain, and then he could deal with it because he knew he could deal with it better. Aaron would go around to different houses, and he would teach people how to say the Shema, right? So he brought peace between man and God. Aaron would see two people striving together, having a difficult time fighting. He would go to the one, he said, such and such feels real bad that you're fighting. Then he'd go to the other one and say, such and such feels real bad that you're fighting. And the two people would come together, oh, sorry, how could we, et cetera, et cetera. So Aaron was very instrumental in being a big peacemaker, and he was very active in people's lives. So people mourned him. He was brought up to the mountain. He was told to prepare for death. He was laid down. His vestments were taken off. They were given to Eleazar, his son, his now older son, who would take on the duties of being the high priest. Right. So his son Eleazar, of course, after him was Phinehas, who would take over from Eleazar. So he was dressed up. He was prepared to die, and it came down. So then, finally, in the last part of this portion, we have a couple of battles that are discussed. So we see that there's the red heifer that talks about purification. We talk about the people striving for water with Miriam. And a very interesting thing happens in here. Okay, what happens? When the people wanted their water, all right, God tells Moshe, speak to that rock, a specific rock. Moshe goes around, couldn't find the rock. What does he do? He takes his staff, and he figures, God said, take your staff. So he struck the rock. He struck it once, a little bit of trickle came out, struck it again, water gushed out. Hashem says to him, because of that, and Aaron, because of the golden calf, you will not see the promised land. Now, why? All right, just because he struck a rock? Well, God said, speak to the rock. So maybe he was supposed, and it's not real clear, but maybe he was supposed to pronounce a blessing, right? We say blessings for food and, other things, for what we eat. We say food when we say a blessing when we smell something fragrant, when we see a rainbow, and when we drink water, we say, blessed art thou, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings everything to life. God. And he failed to say that, and he failed to do that. He failed to speak to the rock in front of all of Israel, so they didn't get to see him sanctify God, and that was the real big reason. Okay. Okay, so let's move over to the next portion in our double portion this week, which is Balak. Okay, Balak was the king of Moab. He sees that that there's a ton of Israelites out there. He feels threatened. What does he do? He sends the prophet Balaam. Now, what they say in the Torah is that each nation has an angel watching over them. All right. Balaam was a sorcerer, he was a prophet, but he kind of retreated. He had kind of a vision, but he retreated into sorcery. And Balak thought that he could go and he could curse the people, right? What does God do? What does Hashem do? He says, you will not curse the people. You will say what I'm going to tell you to say. And the third blessing, he pronounces ends up saying three blessings, which, by the way, infuriated Balak. But the third blessing is how goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your sanctuaries, O Israel. And there's been a lot of interpretation of this, that part of it is the Torah study, part of it refers to the sanctuary. For myself, for what it's worth, Israel was the spiritual, Jacob was the person. We all have a spiritual and a physical essence. Here it's kind of divided, so it was a complete. He blessed us all completely. So, I hope you've had a great week, and I hope you enjoy your Shabbat. We have a very special Friday night service going on at Congregation B'nai Chaim. We are going to honor two of our recent B'nai Mitzvot, Aaron and Zach, who unfortunately the temple was still in disarray. We are going to present them the gifts that we would have presented at their B'nai Mitzvot. We're going to do it, so we hope to see you Friday night. Meanwhile, this is Rabbi Shmuel ben Yehoshua wishing you a Shabbat Shalom, and thank you again, as always, for listening.